31. It being 5:31, I'll call the July 29th meeting to order of the Shelburne Select Board. The first item is the acceptance of minutes from our previous meeting on July 1st. Any discussion?
Go ahead, Tricia.
Sure, I had a couple of changes, please.
Okay.
Under new business, the second item, Elizabeth Boltz regarding the Shelburne Falls Oktoberfest. The license would be for a one-day wine and malt, and it's actually Floodwater Brewing, not Floodwaters Brewery. And then in the next sentence where it says there was some confusion on the date of the event, but it was determined to be September, it actually is the 28th that we figured it out. Or Andrew did. Somebody did. That was a Saturday. I think I had one more. Yes. Under the Franklin Regional Planning Board regarding the Select Board appointee, each town has 2 representatives to this board, 1 a Select Board member, singular. And that's all I've got.
Great. I'll move that we accept the minutes with the corrections as proposed.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. We'll call the vote. Andrew?
Aye.
Tricia?
Aye.
And Rick is an aye. Motion passes unanimously. Department liaison reports. Who'd like to start?
Go ahead, Tricia.
Okay. Hang on, I gotta change screens. Okay, so as you requested, Rick, I spoke with Angel about the tax bill insert protocol. There isn't really a protocol. I mean, she sort of knows that it needs to get select board approval. And I think, like Andrew explained, this seemed to just be kind of like a weird thing that happened because of the change in guard at the the Energy Committee. And there was an email exchange. And so I think she thought everything was okay. It's infrequent enough and it's not always timely. So what we thought is that it might be best to formally remind all the town committees and such that they'll need select board approval to use this form of communication. So that would be my recommendation if we want to send that out to all the boards and committees, just to let them know. And that means they have to think ahead because it has to come to the select board in enough time for us to review it. It has to be on the agenda, get the approval, get back to them well in advance of printing and stuffing of envelopes. Regarding the Emergency Management Committee, they have been really busy in the month of July. Tom says he's got very enthusiastic, in quotes, team members. They gathered at the Emergency Operations Center for some basic radio and telephone procedures and map reading. So I think at the last meeting, I explained that they had a trial run of an emergency and everyone discovered they didn't really know how to use the phones or read maps or handle radios and all of that. So he took a step back and trained them in how to do all of those things. They went over some of their procedures and were able to make changes on the spot to some of the suggestions made by the team members. Tom completed a detailed review of the comprehensive emergency management plan and has a 23 action item list. He's bringing that up to date. He emailed all of that to the committee members ahead of their quarterly meeting, which happened on the 18th of this month. They don't have any minutes. At least when I checked last night, there weren't any meeting minutes posted yet from that. He also assembled informational binders Rick, I know you picked yours up. It's just this red binder he left for us all in town hall with his card and everything. That's for all of us. We should each have a copy of them. So Andrew, if you didn't get yours, it's informative. It's good if you hadn't gone to the training he held many months ago for town officials. And let's see, he delivered a small tabletop rack of publications to town hall so people can see what interests them and take those. He also met with Lori Wheeler to start developing an emergency management Facebook page. I imagine that's still in the works because I just talked to him today, or we emailed today, and he didn't mention any updates on that. Most recently, he went to the Franklin County EMD meeting in Deerfield and MEMA's EMD meeting in our regional office in Agawam, and it was mostly high-level stuff. It wasn't anything really critical, but kind of cool is that he went to a tabletop exercise sponsored by Great River Hydro about how to respond in case of a dam failure in one of the dams north of Shelburne. He said John Taylor was also there, and it was really, really informative. So the next steps are to put together all of the ideas from the committee members. They want to take their maps and go through the rural parts of Shelburne so they can match, if they're not that accustomed to using topographical maps or other maps, this will be really helpful when they actually have an emergency, and do a full run exercise in mid-September or so. And then regarding the senior center, when I was going through the warrants last week, or the week before, I found some really old invoices in the warrant submissions, and Terry asked Julie about them. And Julie said, yeah, she saw that and there are new procedures in place to prevent a recurrence of that. I also noticed that Julie's using a form that requires her to handwrite her name over the previous director's name. And so I'm going to try to get down to the senior center sometime this week or next week and try to solve that IT problem for her so she doesn't have to do that. She can just put her name on it. That's what I've got.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Andrew?
Yeah, sure. Great. Thank you, Tricia. And Terry, do you need any action from the board to take action on Tricia's recommendation there about communicating with town committees?
No, the
Okay.
Energy Committee is the only one to date that has ever put anything in the tax bill, and anytime that occurs, it typically goes to the select board first anyway. So I will definitely remind them we need a little more lead time.
Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have a great deal to report. I've been on vacation for the last 2 weeks. First time in about 17 years I've had that much time off.
Wow.
And but I do have even though the town of Shelburne does not have a diplomatic service, I did do a little bit of Shelburne to Shelburne diplomacy in Shelburne, Nova Scotia. So
Cool.
I visited one of the 4 Shelburnes that I know of, and which is a town about the same size as ours, and got to even spend an hour with the town administrator up there and learn a little bit about the local politics. And I'd be happy to share a brief report on that at our next meeting if you want. It was an interesting visit to a community that shares a lot of common features with ours, but is also in quite a different spot. So anyway,
Cool.
I offer that to you. In terms of the highway department, we now have a new superintendent, and I was just in town today, signed a few things, including the Chapter 90 invoice submitted by our new superintendent. So he's on the job and starting in, and I look forward to checking in with him this week. So I'll have more to tell you at the next meeting. And our thanks again to Mark Shippey for his many years of service, and wishing him well in his retirement. and we'll hopefully have. I'm planning to interview both of them if I can for our next two town news issue. So we hopefully will have some more to share with the citizens of Shelburne about our changing of the guard in the highway department. But that's all I have for the moment. Terry, do you have more? You've been in a little more touch than I have with the highway department.
So far, Jeff seems to be getting more and more comfortable in his role, and I'm pleased.
Great. That's all I have for now. Correct.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I think I've got time to squeeze one of mine in, which is basically yours, Andrew, at your request. While you were on vacation, I did attend the July 18th Franklin Regional Council of Governments meeting. It was the fiscal 2025 reorganizational meeting. A new chairman was elected, that being the representative from the town of Deerfield. Vice chair would be from the town of Gill, and the representative from Hawley will be the clerk for fiscal 2025. There were brief updates from the chair, the executive committee, the director, the planning board, and the finance committee. And then there was a special presentation on the Franklin County Regional Housing Plan Review. The presenter noted, interestingly, Mohawk over the past 10 years has seen a 57% reduction in enrollment, and they seem to think that that's a lack of affordable housing. So they plan to look for ways to tweak town zoning bylaws to be less restrictive. I don't share that opinion, but that's what they think at this point. I'm sure they'll do some investigation going forward. The next meeting was set for October 17th.
Rick?
Yes, sir.
Oh, just to add, and I can't remember now whether I reported on this, but your report on FERCog jogged me to recall that at the last meeting I attended, the one previous to this, there was a vote and an announcement and vote of returning surplus to the town. So Shelburne did get a small rebate because the FERCog was very successful this year in all of the grants that they were able to secure. They did not need as much of the town commitments as they had budgeted, so they returned some of it to the towns. And Terry, do you recall what is coming back to Shelburne?
I
believe
don't recall the dollar amount.
It was
I
not large, but it was nice to see a return.
Okay. It being 5:45, we'll interrupt the liaison reports and we'll move forward. I will open the meeting, the public hearing for an entertainment license request. Notice was published in the local paper, The Recorder, July 22nd, and reads in brief. The Shelburne Select Board will consider an entertainment license request on behalf of Juice Box Wine Bar at 8 Bridge Street, Shelburne, Mass. The request is for an annual entertainment license, so to allow occasional live acoustic music or DJs playing vinyl records between the hours of 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. during the months of May through October, excluding Sundays. I believe we have a representative or two of the Juice Box. Would you like to open with any starting remarks?
Hi, sure. Yeah, I would love to start. Just wanted to thank you for your time.
Can
For
you
considering.
identify yourself, please?
I'm sorry.
Would you identify yourself? State your name.
I am Alice Thompson, one of the owners of Juice Box Wine Bar. So I wanted to thank you all for your time, and I also wanted to really express our gratitude for our last event. I know there was kind of a misunderstanding on our part, and so I really appreciate your flexibility, and it really shows your commitment to the businesses in our town. So I really appreciate your for our last month where we had that misunderstanding. So yeah, you pretty clearly outlined what our entertainment license would allow us to do, is to have some live music. It wouldn't be every day that we're open. It's a couple days a month until the season ends. And we would probably want to reapply next year as well, now that we know this is the process. But yeah, so far we've been having really great feedback from our community, to people that attend. Our last event, unfortunately, it was a really rainy day, but people still came out. We had the toddlers in raincoats dancing in the rain and puddles, and it was a really great time. So, and it didn't go out, it didn't end too late. It ends pretty promptly at 8. So, so far we had really good feedback from the community and no complaints directed at us. So I feel like it would be having a license would give us more opportunities to have those kind of events for the community.
Great. Thank you for getting right after it and doing it promptly once you learned of the procedure. So we appreciate that as well.
I'd
Anyone,
love to add, oh, sorry.
anyone else from your business want to speak?
Yeah, I'm Roxanne Crocker. I'm also one of the owners of Juicebox Wine Bar, and I just wanted to add that our priority with music is that these are really like all ages, family friendly events. So they're very respectful. There's kids, there's older folks. The priority would be to like be playing music that's tasteful and really appeals to all ages. And again, like just between the hours of 4 and 8 p.m. really. For the community. These are free events, and really creating an environment that's inclusive to a broad spectrum of ages.
And is there any public comment for this public hearing? Hearing none. Terry, I think we sent out a butter notices to at least 2 abutters. Any written feedback from them or anyone from the public?
No.
Okay. Well, if there's no other discussion, I will close the public hearing and thank you very much for attending and making the case. Select board members will move on and discuss the matter. Any discussion, Tricia?
Well, I think it's a great opportunity for people to build community. I love that it's a non-age restricted venue. I know from when you first changed over your licensure that was your goal, was to, be family friendly. I think this is a wonderful use of your space out in back. And I think it's a great opportunity for the community and for this business. I'm in favor.
Andrew, any comments?
I think Tricia said it well. I'm also personally supportive of cultural events in town and in the business district. I think that you're taking great initiative, and glad to see that happening. I think in terms of the role of the select board, I think our main sort of police response or responsibility is to be mindful of the community around you, and it sounds like you are as well. So I'm glad to hear you're in touch with the neighborhood, and that's really the only place where I would see us kind of responding to the entertainment license, is if we hear complaints about it. So otherwise, I think go forth and prosper with it.
I'm in agreement with both of my fellow select persons, and do we have a motion?
I move that we grant the entertainment license.
I will second.
The motion has been made and seconded to grant the entertainment license to the Juice Box Wine Bar. Roll call vote. Andrew?
Aye.
Tricia?
Aye.
And Rick is an aye. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your
Welcome.
time.
Thank you.
And I just want to clarify, for next year, we would have to do the same process over again, right? I just want to make sure.
No,
Oh,
no, next year you'll receive renewal of your licenses, and if you
Oh.
wish to continue, it will just be renewed.
okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you
You're
for your
welcome.
time.
Thank you.
Have a
Wow.
lovely evening.
Okay, back to liaison reports. Okay, my liaison reports, Police Services Advisory Committee. The second meeting, as I mentioned before, is not planned for until August. It seems to be the theme for the summer months on many of these. No date has been set. Franklin Regional Planning Board, the first fiscal 2025 meeting is not until September 26th. Nothing to report from the Franklin Regional Transit Authority Advisory Board, as their next meeting is September 19th. And likewise with the Upper Pioneer Valley Veteran Services, their next meeting is in September on the 10th. I think it's summer vacation scheduling issues. Police Department, you may recall we had a citizen with raising concerns about speed limits and speeding on Main Street. The chief in the police department put out a data collection radar system that ran until the battery died. They pulled all that information, recharged the battery, and have reinstalled it for the opposite direction. So it's still in the process, and when we have both into town and out of town data of note, we'll get a report from the chief. So that's that. There'll be an update on the ice cream truck issue later on in our agenda, so I'll hold that until then.
Rick,
Yes,
do you know more or less how long the battery lasted?
I don't.
Like
It
a
was-
week or
it
2
was-
weeks?
Oh, it was weeks. It was several weeks.
Okay, okay.
I'd say it's been a month since they put that out. And it was last week early that the chief told me he was recharging, pulling the data, and would put it back out last week. So I think we probably got another 3 weeks of time ahead of us before he can pull the full amount of data and tell us what's going on there, if anything of worthy of action.
Rick,
Yes, Andrew.
just a question, are those speed recorders a new item for our chief, or have we had those for a while?
It's my understanding we've had them right along.
Oh, I was just thinking that one thing, that if there are things that he wants to utilize and move around to respond to various concerns, we might look into seeing if we can attach solar collectors to them, because that would prevent the battery dying problem and make them last long, collect data longer.
Yeah.
I see it, a lot of highway signs now have little solar panels that keep them going.
Certainly, not a bad idea for sure. I think in this particular case, it's a longer term use. They have put them up previously. Kind of it's just part of the patrolling protocol, but not for extended periods of time where that's been an issue. But I'll mention it to the chief and see if that's actually something he'd like to pursue if they are using it for periods of time when it does go dead. So thank you for that idea.
Yeah, I noticed that with the other signs that are intended to slow people down, that say, that read out you are going XYZ, in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. Those signs are more permanent and often do have solar, collectors connected with them.
Right. Super. Old business. Shelburne's Americans with Disability Act, self-evaluation and transition plan. We processed that at our previous meeting, or maybe 2 ago, and put it out for a period of public comment. That public comment goes to August 5th, I believe, is on our agenda, but I thought I saw something on the 20th somewhere. I'll have to double check that.
I think on
Um,
our meeting minutes. Oh, I may have closed that. The last meeting minutes, I think you're right, Rick, that it said it was gonna go,
To the 20th, not the 5th.
I think so.
I thought the plan was going to be accepted at our meeting on the 20th, but the comment period ended on the 5th.
Ooh, that rings a bell.
But I can go back and look.
Well,
Okay.
we did, I think we gave it a 30-day and our last meeting was in early July, wasn't
It
it?
was July
That's true.
1st.
Yeah, so I think the 5th is right for the end of the 30-day.
Okay. That makes sense. Perfect. So we won't,
Actually, if I may, Rick, in our meeting minutes from July 1st, it said that a motion was made by Andrew to accept the report in draft form and open it to public comment until August 12th.
Oh, okay.
here it is. Yep. I see it now.
All right.
Well, we'll still have time before our next meeting, right?
Correct. Okay. So we will leave that open until the 12th, not the 5th. Thank you, Tricia. Good catch. I like your detail attention.
Well, Andrew and me, we tag teamed it.
Right,
No
got my
problem.
challenge then, don't I?
And Rick?
Yes, sir.
Oh, just one last comment on that, which is to say, as soon as we have a fully completed and accepted report, we can begin using that for things like the grant applications for the lift in the library and that sort of thing. So, and a stage lift for the Memorial Hall Theater. So that's kind of what I'm hopeful will be our next step in terms of one of the ways we can utilize that plan.
We have about 15 days left, so we're 29 into it at this point, ballpark. Has there been any feedback, Terry?
I've received one phone call from a Northampton resident and I asked her to put her comments in writing.
Perfect, perfect. Excellent. Old business item B, police chief, you may recall, we spoke with he and the applicant looking for an ice cream vending approval in the town of Shelburne. It was agreed that the chief would reach out to Charlemont to find out if they followed the correct protocol as is required by law in their issuing of the license. That happened very shortly after our early first week of July meeting, and several follow-up attempts to get an answer have gone unanswered as well. So read between the lines if you wish, but we have nothing further to pursue on that this evening for sure.
The
New
Wild
business.
West in Charlemont there.
Yeah, it may be a request. Never mind. Let's go to new business. John McGibbon has expressed interest in serving on the Community Preservation Committee.
Well, actually, Rick, before we go into that, I just have one last question on the ice cream thing. Is there further, or maybe it's a question for Terry, I don't know where we left this and whose hands this weird business of ice cream permitting is falling into. Is that something that the planning board needs to now take up, or where does that go next?
No. It is Massachusetts general law, and it is the purview of the police department. They have to run a background check, including everything you can imagine, same as if you were buying a firearm. And it's only the police that have that access. The issue is they can't do that without a bylaw for the town of Shelburne that allows or gives our police department permission to do that. So it would, depending on where this fleshes out, if it was decided we did want to allow ice cream shops in Shelburne, then a bylaw would have to be written and put before the voters of Shelburne.
That seems like even if we didn't want ice cream vending, that we should at least have a regulatory structure in place that we can follow.
Well, I
I mean,
guess
because right now the answer to the potential vendors is we just don't have a process.
that's correct.
So it
Right.
seems like we should put a process in place and then we can say yes or no to them.
Rick, if I may.
Tricia?
I agree. I also think that there has to be some kind of the zoning, having the planning board work on this, because they had started work on the mobile food establishment issue. So we could work in tandem. There's no reason why we couldn't propose a general bylaw for town meeting in the spring, while the planning board this year works on whatever, continues their work on the mobile food establishment bylaw, zoning bylaw, to also be presented to the town meeting, and then we go from there. Because I think, without the process in place, with the general bylaw, the zoning bylaw is kind of moot. But I think if we can pass the first general bylaw from the select board about allowing the police department to do the background check as required by Mass General Law, then we can have a later warrant article in the town meeting to address the zoning. If the first one doesn't pass, then we can just pass over the zoning one, I guess. Yes.
I feel like they're two separate things.
Yeah.
Ice cream is very specific to having a bylaw that authorizes the chief to do a background check for mobile ice cream vendors. I agree, we do need bylaw language for mobile vending in general, but for ice cream, it's somewhat specialized.
It is a whole separate matter. So I'm hoping the planning board does bring forth something on food trucks at our next annual town meeting, but it's not anything to do with the ice cream permitting process. As Terry described it, it's a whole separate animal with Mass General laws of significant volume of every dot that needs to be placed and T that needs to be crossed. So that's a matter of, does the town want to make a process to allow ice cream vendor trucks to come to the town of Shelburne? And if so, then a bylaw would need to be put in place to allow the chief to do the background checks. He can't do them legally without our having a bylaw that gives him that permission. So maybe it's a two-prong question for a future town meeting, but at the moment, it's a moot question for us because we don't have the process.
Right, but just to, Rick, if I may,
Yes.
just to follow up on Tricia's suggestion, I think the planning board sounds like they're doing the heavy lifting on mobile food trucks in general, but that the select board could initiate a fairly simple solution on the ice cream business simply by proposing a one sentence bylaw to the voters that says, do you support allowing the chief to utilize Mass General Law to evaluate ice cream truck proposals, I mean, all the law is already there, as you've said. It's really us just having that go ahead that gives the chief the permission to then go into all that. I mean, personally, I'm not a big proponent of ice cream trucks, and I'm pretty dubious as to whether there's enough of a market in our little town to keep one going. But I think that it's kind of a restraint of trade to have towns simply tell businesses that they can't operate because they don't have the bylaws to evaluate them. That seems kind of bureaucratic to me. and or just using bureaucracy to stifle people's, entrepreneurship. And again, I think it's kind of a crapshoot whether such a business would go, but I don't think it's our place to stand in their way by utilizing, bureaucratic inertia.
It would take someone to champion it and pursue it. And if and either of you on the board would like to do that, take it on, have at it, certainly within your purview.
Okay, I will have a conversation with Greg about it and just see if there's a simple sentence that we can put together that would, break the logjam and at least allow somebody to make a proposal,
Very good.
Thanks.
All set? Now we're on to John McGibbon, interest in serving on the Community Preservation Committee. In your packet, you had all of the communications, I'm sure, between Will Flanders and the applicant. Has supplied, according to our newly refreshed application process, all of the information that we want to happen in it. Any discussion or comments?
He seems like he is interested, and Will is happy to have him on the board. So, and he seems like he's got enough of a background in different types of things, with being a treasurer in an organization, also a president, various volunteer organizations, that he would be an asset to the group, especially as it's getting started, because he might be able to see where there are pitfalls based on his experience with other organizations. So I would support his nomination, and he lives on Mechanic Street, so we know he's local.
Is this Terry? Is this the one of the at-large? This is
Yes,
the at-large that the select board does need to choose.
yes.
So we need a motion. Unless, Andrew, do you have a comment first?
Only to say that John is my next door neighbor, so I don't know if that puts me in a conflict of interest position or not. My other next door neighbor, Paul Hollings, or across the street neighbor, was the one who resigned from the CPA to take a planning board position. So I have an active neighborhood, I guess. But
Great recruiting process there.
right.
Yeah.
No, John, I've worked with John. He jumped right into the Pothole Pictures movie committee. He's a filmmaker himself, so we were happy to have him on that, and now he seems to be interested in this. So I'm glad he's an active citizen.
Well, I don't believe it's a conflict for you on this, Andrew.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
I move to accept John McGibbon's application to serve as an at-large member of the Community Preservation Committee.
And I will second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call. Tricia?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Rick is aye. Motion passes unanimously. It's nice to see some of our committees getting fleshed out again after attrition that seems to happen every so often. So next is a letter of support for House Bill H 823 regarding the recycling of paint. This was also in your packet, and if you read the Greenfield Recorder, there was an extensive article on it this morning. Any comments or discussion?
I would say, first of all, thank you for taking the initiative on this. And according to the email we received from Jan Amin, she also requested that it go to the Speaker of the House, and that person wasn't included on the letter. I don't know if that was intentional or what, but that's the only comment I had.
They supplied the letter, right, Terry?
They did, and the Speaker of the House is on the second page of the letter. I just didn't include a second page with that one person's name.
Okay, Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's
Um,
obvious, it's obviously been supported by almost all of our surrounding towns, as well as a huge list and supplied in the packet as well. It's another layer of funds to be collected, almost like the CPC, where there's I believe it's up to $1.25 per gallon fee taken by retail paint stores. That goes into a fund to provide a system and a process and a location to recycle and safely dispose of leftover paints, oil, based latex, whatever. So it has some merit for sure. Any other discussion?
The only other initiative that I'm aware of locally, I think, isn't there effort by the Franklin County Jail, which does a lot of painting for public purposes, to utilize recycled paint? They sort of mix stuff together and make a general color that they use. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I'm not aware
No.
of it,
No.
and this may be a perfect source for them, because that's part of the process, as they explained it, of what they will do to dispose of larger.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, no, I think it's keeping stuff out of the landfills is where we've got to go.
And clearly the town has no fiscal responsibility for this at all. It said it was fiscal neutral, right? So I think this is a great thing. Having tried to get rid of paint in the past, it's a real hassle with cat litter and all kinds of things. So I like this idea.
So do we have a motion to support the town of Shelburne sending and signing the letter of support for House Bill 823 for the recycling of paint?
I will
Sure.
make that motion. Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
No,
You
you go ahead, Tricia.
I make the motion to submit the letter of support for House Bill H.823 regarding the recycling of paint.
And I will second.
Motion is made and seconded. Roll call vote. Tricia,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
and Rick is aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, David Conlon, new business item C, tiny town exemption request. When I first got this, I'll start with my initial reaction before I ask for your comments was, apparently something like this has happened similarly. We're talking other towns here, but are school employees considered town employees? So I didn't know, he's asking for us for an exemption here for another town, and he's a teacher. So as I read it, I was confused whether we had any say in this. Terry, do I need to be taken to school on this?
I certainly understand why you questioned it, but I guess because it's a district that is in multiple towns, every town representing the district has to approve the holding of more than one position. It does seem silly, but we have done it in the past. We did it prior for Mr. Conlon as well.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So, right, when he asked for permission before, though, he was working for the town of Shelburne, right, as a custodian at Buckland Shelburne and as a teacher. Now he's going to be working at Coleraine.
I had to go
So-
through a similar process as a member of the Franklin County Solid Waste District. Every district representative had to, from every town that they came from,
So
to
is he going to
serve.
have to do this at all 8 towns?
I believe so.
I
Okay,
see. Okay.
thank you for clarifying that. Any other discussion?
No, I would move that we grant the exemption.
I second that.
Motion is moved and seconded. Andrew,
Aye.
Tricia,
Aye.
Rick is aye. Motion passes unanimously. fiscal year-end transfers. I hope you all got the follow-up second version of this. Earlier this morning, there were 2 items. This is year-end budget transfers in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B. It's the transfer of the sum of $337 from the Building and Grounds account to the Cowell Gym maintenance account. And a second item, the transfer, the sum of $2287, that's $2,287 from the highway maintenance expense account to the highway salaries account. Any discussion on either of the 2 transfer requests?
So there's just an extra 3 in the last one there. In the first iteration, which is in our packet, there it says
Oh,
3,
there was a
3.
third item, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and that's no longer needed.
Oh, the third item is no longer needed. Okay.
We're only looking at the first 2 that I just read.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't see the second version of this, but go ahead.
If there's no discussion, we'll need a motion to approve both transfers at once, or if you'd prefer, one at a time.
I don't have an issue with doing both at once.
Okay,
If anybody does, no, then I'll move to approve both transfers.
Second.
motion is made and seconded to approve both of the end of year budget transfers in accordance with Mass General Law. Tricia,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
and Rick is aye. Under any other business, our next regularly scheduled meeting will be on August 12th. Any other business that I'm unaware of?
The only thing I would say is I'm going to take my Selectboard 101 training
Ooh,
on August 15th, so I'll still be a newbie at the next meeting, so please be kind.
you've been great. You're well schooled. That's the one Bob Dean sent around last week, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that looks great. Anything else, Andrew or Terry? Hearing none,
Just-
correspondence? Any public comment? We do have a member of the public. and-
Hi,
Hi, John.
John
You're up,
Walsh.
sir.
So I didn't get a chance to get on the agenda earlier, but I have one general comment. Basically, with the recent heat waves that we've been having, I think I'd like to start floating the possibility of having the Cowell Gym being a cooling center during those terms of extended heat waves. I mean, we've got the cooling in place. We could either do the gym or someplace downstairs, but it seems like it's something to consider as a board as to having a policy of when we should open heat cooling centers. And I would like at least to start that thought process of how to go about trying to do that.
Thank
Yeah, sure. And then the only other update is that the 5 streetlights on the streetlight committee, the streetlights have been removed. We've got word today from Esther that we can submit the letter that Rick signed last week to the both lawyers for Eversource and the Department of Public Utilities. So we will be doing that sometime soon. It'll be a 30-day process waiting for them to come back. And then there'll be a contract that goes along with that, which will have to be reviewed by town council. And we'll be lucky if we get anything started before September or October. And then I have one question for opinions. I've been starting the process of getting quotes for the Cowell, painting being on the main top of the list for me. And whether or not anybody would think that changing the white color to a barn red color would be disturbing to anybody.
Unfortunately, under public comment, we aren't allowed to deliberate.
Okay, well then,
And
then
we can't address
I'll
that.
talk to you individually. It's just an opinion. I'm just looking for opinions. Nothing, it's not a vote.
Opinion is a deliberation, so we'll sit tight on that.
Yes, okay, not a problem.
Thank you. Thank you for those other updates as well.
Sure, not a problem. Thank you.
So Rick, am I allowed to ask a question about John Walsh's comment? Is that
Chair,
okay?
the chair has discretion.
Oh,
On which matter?
You
Oh,
can,
this is just
you have
about-
discretion on how you want to run the public comment business.
Yeah,
the cooling center.
we publish our meeting agendas ahead of subjects we're going to address. Whether we all think it's a great idea and we ought to do it yesterday, or we all hate it and never want to do it, doesn't matter at this point. I really don't, I think it can wait.
Okay,
It is something John would need to put in front of us.
Sure, and it was just
Officially.
I'm doing this more as myself as opposed to the director of the Cowell, so. Because I was thinking 2 weeks ago when this all came down with the heat wave that we had. Second heat wave, and we're expecting a third next week possibly, so.
Well, forgive me. I just don't want to open a door of slippery
No.
slope and say you've done it before and
No,
start changing a process.
completely understood. And I
Okay.
understand it's comment, no only, no response.
Thank you, kind sir.
No, thank you,
Any-
kind.
Any other public comment? I see no one else. We'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye.
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 Unanimous. Thank you, guys. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Great, thank you,
you.
Rick.
Have a great 2 weeks.